At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machinde, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for Legal Matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m., Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besige every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are the Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
To the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. On this 9th day of December, the year is 2024. As we speak right now, there is a change of government in Syria. Bashar al-Assad regime that has been in power for the last 24 years, but also the Assad family generally has been in power for 53 years in Syria. And after 13 years of conflict, of war, of people losing their lives, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives in Syria over the course of the 13 years of the war. Right now, Bashar al-Assad is no more in that particular country. Yesterday, the opposition forces, in just a matter of 11 days, were able to topple the government of Bashar al-Assad. And of course, as we speak right now, they continue to start setting up a new regime in that particular country. What does that mean for the Middle Eastern country? And of course, what does it mean generally for the politics that are happening in that particular region? We're going to be talking about that. But when we come back here at home, tomorrow, retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besige, former leader of the FDC and flag bearer in various elections, was incarcerated and of course charged in the General Court Martial for possession of weapons and also trying to mobilize for resources to remove government right here in Uganda. He was charged in the military court martial and he was remanded after a first hearing that was on the 2nd of December to 10th of December, which is tomorrow. He will be reappearing again at the General Court Martial. As we speak today, his lead counsel, that is Honorable Martha Karua from Kenya, former Minister of Justice in Kenya, has been denied a permit to be able to litigate in Uganda. Now, they say that her coming to Uganda and of course trying to litigate and represent Dr. Besige in those various cases, the government says that these are politically motivated, and of course the Uganda Law Council is not going to be accepting her, giving her a temporary permit that would allow her practice law in Uganda. And of course, when we look at the other sides as the opposition parties gear up for the next elections, Mr. Mpuga, that is Honorable Mpuga, former leader of opposition and member of parliament in the August House as we speak, launched a new alliance. He dubbed it the Democratic Alliance. And of course, various members, especially from the DP bloc, have joined this particular alliance. What does this mean for the opposition? Is this a new shot to fighting Mr. Museveni's government? Is this a new modus operandi that will yield results? Can this really create a change that we have not seen from the times of the Forum for Democratic Change? Is this something that is new? And of course, what does this mean for a political party that has been, in chaos with Mr. Mpuga, that is the National Unity Platform, and especially both being Buganda strongholds? how does that look like, especially in the year 2025 and beyond? That and much more is what we're going to be having a conversation on tonight. So feel free to send us questions, queries, comments, or anything that you would want us to tell you about, and we'll be in position to give you more information. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. Once again, allow me welcome our guests for this evening. A gentleman who is not unusual in this forum. That is a gentleman from the Uganda People's Congress, Honorable Ochieno Joseph. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for breaking the news for me about Mother Karua.
Yes.
I have been in meetings most of the day.
Yes.
I had a fantastic meeting in the last 2 hours with a fantastic young Ugandan completely committed to a post-Museveni Uganda. But I also realized that the young Ugandan was amongst the many Ugandans in their 30s who actually don't know that it's their jobs and responsibilities to engage in these conversations and to hold grip of the Republic of Uganda if their children are to have a future in this country. And amongst those Ugandans that we normally tell that when we come into these conversations in the programs that you very kindly host,
yes, sir,
that is really about everybody's future and nobody's doing Edgar or Ochieno a favor. So that was nice. But only to come here and find that the NRA has bungled it once again by denying Mother Karua the permission to practice and formally represent Kazooba agenda, say who actually on the spot must be the chief executive of NRA, meaning Comrade Museveni, who claims that since before you were born that he was an African, a Pan-Africanist, and who has bungled the East African community that our founding parents built, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, the three. And
the Pan-Africanist.
The Pan-Africanist and the alleged East Africanist. Can you imagine what Milton Obote, Julius Nyerere, and Jomo Kenyatta are thinking in heaven, together with the greats like Jaramogi's in heaven, that to date, before Obote came home to lead to be part of the struggle, of course, the Uganda National Congress and the liberation movements here for independence.
Yes, sir.
He was an active member of the Kenya African National Union in Kenya and an activist and in trade unions in Kenya.
Yes.
So these guys were there, and these guys were seeing themselves at this home, this East Africa, this community. And 60 years later, some cheeky young man who claims to be one of them, a root from them, controls the Republic of Uganda. And every other time, East African community, they brought us some dubious arrangements. There's a new map of East African community. I was telling a program the other day that if you did a poll today, 90% of Ugandans will not tell you who the Secretary General of the East African community is. And 90% of Ugandans today watching you will not tell you, give you 3 names of members of the East African Legislative Assembly that they're pushing us for a zonk. The fact that a Kenyan lawyer, a senior lawyer, is denied right to represent a Ugandan in Uganda, where the bandits in Uganda went and kidnapped a Ugandan in Kenya and they got the free will. What a hypocrisy. Okay.
I've been informed that there is also another lawyer from Angola who has joined the team of Dr. Besigye. I hope he will be certified as well. The next panelist, and also a gentleman who's always here with us on the Hotline Show, Charles Kazooba. He is the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karuhanga, and Digital Television. Sorry, I've been off the airwaves.
Yeah, we were very concerned about you. We just wanted to make sure that you hadn't been kidnapped, but karibu.
But I was attending to academics, so...
So you were not abducted?
No, I'm too smart to be abducted.
He's boasting. Okay, but I'm pleased to hear that.
No. You have a special place.
Yeah, I'm too smart. It's good to be back. and share our views with the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has it been where you have been?
Tough. What I'm studying is foreign affairs, relations of the world, how states are interacting with each other. So it is quite tough because you have to understand the entire world. Yes. So yeah, but gradually we are moving on.
That's good. I want us to delve into a conversation that is international, really, that mainly looks at your sphere of influence and studies. A new regime has been welcomed by various masses, by the international community, a couple of countries here and there, in Syria, after the fall of what they call a dictatorial regime that has been at the helm of that country, a family that has been at the helm of that country for 53 years. What does a new leadership in Syria speak to the politics, the global politics and affairs today?
I look at Syria in different perspectives. Number one, as an extension of the consequences of the Cold War, because it appears the Cold War did not end. It is still ongoing, but silently. You see the United States and Russia fighting for spheres of influence. And Syria became a victim of that fight. Number two is the time for dictatorships is also coming to an end. Whether we like it or not, I think liberal democracy is gaining ground and winning world over. Citizens of various states want elections which are free and fair and regular, so that they can choose their leaders without interference. And then countries move on. So states that are still remaining with dictatorships, eventually they will have to yield to citizens of those countries, because globalization has made, first of all, information move so fast. Technology and information are moving so fast. So people are enlightened.
Yes.
They understand what is good and what is bad. And what is good is what they want for themselves.
Yes.
So the era of governments subduing citizens, that is coming to an end. You saw in Sudan how Bashir left.
Yeah.
Nobody expected Bashir to ever go. The man had weapons, he had the military, he could do whatever he wanted, but he left. Now you see Assad going. We least expected it. I think we were not paying so much attention.
Exactly. And the way it was so fast, that a war that has been there for 13 years,
Yes.
and people capture your country in 11 days,
Yeah.
it would really...
So
It's more of a
probably
miracle.
the wars between Israel and Palestine, and the one of
Lebanon.
Russia and Ukraine
Okay.
are probably not in vain, because they have overstretched Russia
Yes.
and Iran. So there wasn't enough support that would have gone to support
Al-Assad's government.
to prop their proxy Assad.
Just to inform our viewers that Russia has been really in support of that government and has been pro-Assad government. And as we
Yes.
speak, I think Assad is in Kremlin, or no, not Kremlin, in Russia.
Yeah.
And that's where he's seeking asylum as we speak right now, the former president of Syria.
So the world is also going to change. I also see communist Russia going to weaken so much. So whoever is thinking of relying on Russia in the future should be very, very careful, because they are weak and they are going to weaken further, and therefore they may not have the capacity to support the regimes that they have been supporting.
Okay.
So we are likely to see more governments collapse. If you've been relying on support from that axis of Russia, the Chinas, the Irans, you have to be very, very sensitive to what is happening.
Maybe lastly, this gentleman was recently voted by 95% of the population. He won the election by 95%. But then after being toppled, if you looked at the jubilation and ululations, one would juxtapose the electoral process and the elections and, the jubilation, and one would say, was this really a genuine?
You can't have a dictatorship and also have elections.
Okay.
Those are sham elections. It is not really possible. Assad is a war criminal that should be brought to justice as fast as possible. I just wish the Russians could hand him over for prosecution. The crimes he committed against the citizens of Syria, those people need justice. So hiding him is not really good for Putin. The man should be prosecuted. He is a war criminal.
Okay.
He should face justice. And this is a message to all these guys that are leading countries. You cannot go around killing citizens and you think tomorrow when things get out of hand, you go and hide somewhere. No, you should be brought to justice. This impunity should end. It should end. So Assad should be handed over and face trial. Yes, it is not really about the global politics. He killed so many people. He has almost destroyed the entire country just because of greed, selfishness. So that is unacceptable. And even the other guys that are in charge of these countries, this should be a very strong message to them.
Nobody is immune.
Because some of them might not even have where to run to. Assad might have been lucky, but some of them, these others, we might grab them from the airport before they even board the plane. So they just have to be very careful.
Okay.
What you do to citizens should be justice. So that tomorrow, the same citizens will defend you. Say, he was our man. He might have failed to manage the state, but
He was our man.
he was our man.
Okay.
But if you think you're going to steal, you kill, torture people, no. The citizens, you see, this globalization, we are very lucky that we are in a very good era of globalization. People are so informed.
There's a lot of information.
You know, the moment Assad boarded the plane, people from all over the world were looking for him. Where has he gone? Which country? Until they manipulated their systems and the plane went off the radar system, so they couldn't see. But otherwise, they were waiting.
Where is he?
Wherever he would go, they would have grabbed him. And that is what we want.
Okay.
If you commit mass crimes, you should face trial.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Where?
Anywhere.
So not
You
in Nairobi and then you get kidnapped to Kampala.
No. If you kidnap, you who has kidnapped you should not think that people have not taken note of you.
Okay.
I've told you this globalization incidents are documented.
And it's on record, really. It will always be
Don't
on
think you
record.
can commit any crime and you think because I've not been arrested or prosecuted today, tomorrow it is okay. No. The records are there. We shall look for you. Even if it takes 20 years.
Some people might ask you who are we, but anyway.
No, I think when he mentions it, such, my viewers understand. Bring it home. Let me come to you, Ochieno. What do you think about the new regime in Syria? Or what took
I
place
have no
in-
opinion about the new regime in Syria. I just want to say that really good riddance to Al-Assad and his father Al-Fazed. At the peak of Al-Assad, I was at the peak of my campaigns and our campaigns on the liberation struggles on this continent and in this country. Al-Assad actually came out as a young, sharp doctor, handsome looking with a British woman, and at some stage I thought actually that he would be the really new face,
The solution.
for part of the new faces of the region.
Yeah.
That would be perhaps a modest, moderate, progressive faces of the Arab dictatorships in there,
Yeah.
transform, democratize, and possibly make it difficult for Israel to blackmail the region and to make it difficult for Anglo-America and their thirst for the oil of that region and control of the sub-region, and that whichever poodles eventually they have, as they normally have them anyway, they would be poodles who do not abuse the rights of their people. So that is Assad and his family and the brutality they've committed. But that said, what has happened in Syria is less about Assad and the Syrian people, but more about Assad, the Syrian people. Syria is a geopolitical location, and Syria's fundamental position and regional and foreign policy position on as far as Syria, Lebanon, Iran, and really the Arab-Israeli conflict, which continues to date, basically the quest for Holy Land. Syria happens to be the countries, lest we forget, together with Iran, that have been fundamentally on the much more radical opposed to the Israeli occupation of Palestinian lands. In fact, at the Golan Heights in Syria, Syria lost land from Israel following the 1967 war, and that has been a bitter conflict in between. So actually, amongst the people celebrating today are Zionist Jews and some Israelis, because some Israelis don't believe that Syrian land should be annexed, regardless of what's happened in Syria. I happen to hold that view too. So that is that. And so the bad boys to Anglo-America, Anglo-American backers of Zionism, were always Syria and Iran. And so they're the ones, quote, who've won from a geopolitical point perspective, and Zionist Israel. Syria's continued conflicts in that region, from a strategic point of view, is one which moderate global citizens who believe that the Palestinians have got a right to self-determination and the occupation of their land is wrong, I supported personally Syrian position, not the Syrian regime, Syrian position on that. People mix these things, and sometimes people take these things rather emotively, and these things get clouded into personalities.
Yes.
In any case, there's a Syrian dictatorship, there's a Saudi dictatorship, but the Saudis, you would argue that they sort of their people have kind of Syrian dictatorship, Jordanian dictatorship, same family too. The Jordanian one, son of a former president, has managed to navigate his way, things like that. Egyptian dictatorship, all of them you can actually count. The nearest democracy, by and large, would actually possibly, of these Arab countries, would actually be Lebanon. So that's sort of what's happened. Who has lost from a global power perspective is Russia. If you look at Russia and Iran as the big powers. So then if you take Russia away and then you go back to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it's not a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The conflict is between Russia and NATO, and basically NATO led by America. And if you see what happened around the time I was being born over the Cuban missile business, when there was this blockade merely because there was a missile, Russian missile in Cuba, and the Americans said this is a threat to them, and Cuba has been broken by America since I was born, merely because of that. It is absolutely right for Russia to feel threatened that NATO, meaning American missiles, at their doorstep. Is it right that Russia then should go ahead and occupy Ukraine? No. You get the conflict?
Yes.
So no, while it is wrong for Russia to occupy Ukraine, it is understandable why Russia did that, considering the fact of the global politics. And of course the expert is my brother here. But that said, since it's not our primary topic, it's nice to see a brutal guy from one particular family go. What genuinely surprised me was sort of like the speed of lighting with which this guy is, and things changed within 2 weeks. Syria is a military power, and Iran is a military power, and the fact that actually they seem to have lost, I think Washington is a very happy place today. So this thing, guys think they really they've beaten these guys. Okay. So it's less about the family, but more about the global world.
Speak to the populace being able, after 53 years of being able to rise up and really fight for their cause.
Okay, you know, that's interesting, because I was going to address this thing about the crowds in the streets. Crowds in the streets are neither here nor there. Actually, when military Bote's government was overthrown in 1971,
yes,
you know,
they were there.
Some people cheekily in the streets of Kampala,
they
demonstrated, they danced, but they danced to the
for
brutality.
The
leader of DP danced to the shark that was going to attack it. But no, if you had elections in 1971, you could have called the Pope to be the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. UPC was going to win it convincingly. So no, you will always have particular people, and of course in ours, in Kampala, maybe I'm being simplistic here, Kampala was predominantly be anti-UPC. Even in 1985, can you imagine when this bunch, the Musevenis and their bunch came through the Okellos, there were still celebrations in Kampala. The interesting thing was the NRA victory, this theft of beating people in Kampala in 2001. You could not see NRA guys celebrate, but slightly different. So those will happen. But now back to, the rebellion.
Yes, sir.
You know one thing that people in Arab worlds do? That's why Musevenis are very lucky, and they're praying. They're praying that they can only pray with Besige. That we do not have Somali-like, and we do not. You know what? Without prejudice and without prejudiced identity. No, these Middle Eastern guys take their positions and they fight. The Afghans fought, granted back by America, and they got rid of Dr. Najibullah, the Russians at the time. They fought, and this and the Hezbollah, what are they called? The Taliban and things like that. These guys fight America. Osama bin Laden fight America. So these guys don't joke. So yes, these guys take positions and they run. They'll run in the name of Islam, but generally whatever their beliefs are, with or without religion, and sometimes maybe they didn't think they're able to do so. Okay. So no, actually, if you see what happened around the Arab Spring, get a quarter Arab Spring in Africa, you will see some of these dubious guys who pretend to be, a quarter Jesus in the town of the streets of African capitals, running like now, kneeling, kind of stuff. Yeah. So no. Some of these things I think cultural. Some of these things are cultural, but it's interesting. But maybe it also speaks to the circumstances and environments of these people. Some people talk about religious influence. I don't want to go down there. That historically, of course, even Christians have also fought for their things. That the business, particularly this thing that you believe that if you fight for your cause, if you die for your cause, you become a martyr.
Yes,
It's an interesting ideology, but it's a partly contributory thing. But don't forget it is Syria. Don't forget it's Somalia. Don't forget the Palestinian things for their particular rights. Don't forget it's been Lebanon. And don't forget it is Yemen. And don't forget it is Iraq. Don't forget it's Iran. But most of these wars, and permanently almost, Afghanistan, permanently these wars are really not about people who like fighting. There's a religious
There's a
element,
cause.
ideological element, but particularly the Cold War thing that my brother is talking about. The wars in that region, all of them come back to Arab-Israeli conflict. In any case, actually, and let me say this to the Urbana scholar here, I actually argue that the rise of terrorism, the rise of the Islamist kind of stuff, you know, has really been as a result of the radicalization of Muslims and people, particularly from the Holy Land, who felt that they've been marginalized, and then because they're the weaker, they take the shortcuts to throw grenades like the NRA guys. These NRA guys also threw grenades in Kampala, you know. NRA guys threw grenades in Kampala. NRA guys even hijacked aircraft. So lest you forget, they did that. And as I said, in those days, the business about hostages, particularly the Palestinians and people who are supporting them, saw this as the shorter cut, the weapons they have in their hands in order for them to deliver from the other against the other power. And finally, I know we've been going on and on. We thought, for me, I celebrated 1989 at the collapse of the Berlin Wall, that the Cold War was come to an end, and particularly Africa, which was being used as the football for these things, would be given a breather, and then would be able to move and build our continent without interference. But no, the irony is that Kampala is now a foothold for these guys with their top Nyampala more than it was in 1967.
Okay. Wow, you paint a picture, and the beauty about your submission is that you relate it back to the reality in Africa generally, because this is one of our biggest problems. Lastly on this issue, and I'm going to come to you, the region generally there, Middle East, feels volatile at the time. There is war in Syria, and it has been there for a while, Lebanon, Israel, and generally that axis looks to be very volatile. Does that really change after the new government in Syria? How does that work out? And also comment on some of the issues that he has raised.
I saw Biden, the US president, say that there is now uncertainty with the exit of Assad and the entry of these new groups that previously were linked to the Al-Qaeda.
That's the irony, actually.
So the Americans are a little bit concerned. Just like when Mubarak left Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood took over. So there were efforts to neutralize, to first neutralize the Muslim Brotherhood.
Bittersweet.
I suspect that's what is going to happen, because the whole of yesterday, Sunday, America and Israel were bombing Syria after these guys took over. So there is a suspicion that these are not the right people to be in charge of Syria.
According to them, and that's the sadness of global politics, meaning some other forces, some other powers, and powers from outside the region are determining who should be in charge. Unfortunately, that's the reality we have, including here in Kampala.
In Africa.
In the eyes of the West, these people are terrorists, and they cannot be accommodated. That's why Biden was saying there is an uncertainty. You can't tell the direction Syria will take with these people being in charge. So the ball is in their hands. It is in the hands of these new guys to reorient themselves. You know, you could be a terrorist today and become a Democrat tomorrow. When Israel, at the formation of that Jewish state, those guys were actually behaving as terrorists. In fact, they introduced terrorism to that region. Bombs, they at one time bombed British offices in the area and killed a number of people. So they behaved as terrorists initially, but today they are Democrats. Now, it is up to these people, can they reorganize themselves and put the country to order, even organize elections. They don't, you know, and that is the problem we have as a world. When a group takes over with arms, they hold the country hostage. Yet, what they should be doing is to allow the will of the people, the citizens, to take charge of the country through elections. So you remove Assad, organize elections.
Yes.
If you are popular, people will vote for you.
Yes. Some people have done that, by the way.
But I highly suspect they will not allow it.
Okay.
Because there is also another group, the Islamic State, ISIS.
ISIS, yeah.
It is waiting and studying the situation. They want to take charge of Syria.
But just briefly, very quickly. So the point is, who was funding these guys? Who was arming these people? And that's what I'm trying to say. It's a part, quite clearly, regional geopolitics. The only party that we didn't mention is Turkey, who is has been a permanent player in that sub-region by supporting, Kurdish rebels in the side of that place. So my view is that for me, somebody who basically does not believe in armed conflicts and who's a Democrat, I'm completely conflicted. The things that are happening in the Middle East has got, in really by and large, nothing to do with democracy, but more to do with the scramble for power and control of the sub-region and the globe.
Thank you. We shall stop there on the issues of the Middle East. Let's come back home. We already have some of the issues happening here. As I told you, Dr. Kizza Besigye, a former presidential candidate from Forum for Democratic Change, will be arraigned in the General Court Martial for the second time tomorrow, following his arrest in November. In fact, I would call it an abduction. It wasn't an arrest at that time. Martha Karua, his lead lawyer, has been denied, a temporary certification to be able to practice in Uganda's courts by the Uganda Law Council. And I want to start with him, because I did not even hear from you generally on the case of Dr. Besigye in the grand scheme of things. What does this manifest when the lead counsel of Dr. Besigye is not even given accreditation to be able to litigate and defend his particular, client? What do you think about what is happening in the General Court Martial?
When Besigye was abducted, I never had the time to come and share my views with our people here.
Yes, sir.
First of all, we should understand that this is a military government, but it disguises as a democracy. The issue of Besigye being abducted was the worst action that Museveni has done so far. It doesn't matter whether he was in the know or not. Whatever the case is, that looking at the processes that followed thereafter,
yes,
President Museveni has owned up, so it is him responsible. That kind of behavior is a behavior for the uncivilized people. You imagine you're at your home and you have a guest in your house. Then your neighbor comes with a panga, picks your guest, takes the person away. Even if Besigye committed a crime, the manner, the method of arrest is queer, uncivilized, illegal, cruel, typical of bush war methods. But we are in the 21st century, for heaven's sake. So before we even talk of suspicion that Besigye maybe he could have committed a crime, we must first deal with the action of arrest.
And it's not the first time. We've had the 36
So
FDC cadres. We were here with you, and you realize what happened.
Any sane legal tribunal, a court per se, as it is said of the military courts,
Which you're calling a tribunal.
Any sane human being should have first made a ruling on that act itself. Before you even consider the details of Besigye's case. So they should have thrown out the case immediately.
Under those circumstances.
Under those circumstances. You don't even have to look at the details of the what prostitution is stating.
For example, if they bring you, for example, a tortured person as judge, even before you start talking about the case, that is already
for a civilized society of today.
I get what you're meaning, sir.
You don't even have to listen to what prostitution is saying. Looking at that method itself, people behaved in an unruly manner. First of all, I've not even heard our country here apologize to Kenyans. They have not apologized. You hear them trying to justify, somebody was in the know. Who? Kenyans cannot forgive us for invading their sovereignty to misconduct ourselves.
Then the question is, did we invade?
We did.
Did we?
We
Because it feels
did.
like the Kenyan government is okay with that. Because
You see,
He said Kenyan, not the Kenyan regime,
Yeah.
you know, not the trainee of Mr. Museveni in this business, is it?
these things these things that are happening.
because it feels like it's okay. You've not had even Kenya complain.
These things that are happening.
Kenyans are complaining.
Kenya,
No, if you don't,
the head
sorry,
of
it's not an
state.
interjection. No, he said Kenyans.
Yeah.
He did not say
The
Ruto,
Kenyans,
his
the people.
cabal, who are trainees of Mr. Museveni.
Okay.
Yes.
These things that are happening are counterproductive. They will cost us here. You just wait. Have you ever asked yourself why, whenever there are protests in Kenya, Uganda is the first attack? Why? They burnt our embassy. It is because of our bad manners. We misbehave on the international scene. We do not know how to conduct ourselves in the international system. There are rules that govern the international system. You don't just walk into somebody's country, pick somebody and run away like a thief. There are laws that you should follow. So before even any discussion should have happened on Besigye's alleged crime, we should have dealt with the manner of his arrest.
First.
And therefore, any sane community should not even have had the case. They should not have had the courtesy to listen to the prostitution. To listen about what?
And they did, and they remanded Dr. Besigye.
Now-
Coming back tomorrow.
Where I also fault now Besigye's team.
Is it a sane agency?
Depends
Where
on
I
how
also
you see
fault
it.
Besigye's team and the general community of Ugandans. Having looked at that fraudulent manner of his arrest, we've fallen into President Museveni's trap by participating in the trial. We shouldn't have let that happen. Number one, there should have been defiance.
That they shouldn't go to court.
Nobody should have gone to court. Nobody. Not even the press, not even the lawyers. They should have totally ignored the military tribunal. Besigye should also have kept quiet. And then, in cooperation with those actions, we should have had protests on the streets so that he is released unconditionally. So first of all, we should
the citizens should have come in.
we should have totally ignored the military tribunal. Totally. Not even mentioning it anywhere in the media. Then Besigye also decides to keep quiet. And he lets them do whatever they want to do. If they want to bring him to court, he ignores them. That is the only way you can deal with the military government. But by you accepting to participate in the Besigye's trial, then you have fallen in President Museveni's trap.
Then why isn't the Uganda Law Council crediting the lead council if you say that's what they want or that's what justifies them?
I have told you.
Why are they not even accepting
who's the law council?
I have told you, number one.
Who's the law council?
That you are dealing with the military government. You get it?
Yes, I'm getting you.
So is the law council
what is the law council?
operating outside the domain of the militarism in this country? It is only the citizens that have the actual power, not these agencies working within the government. They don't have any power. In fact, most of them now are no longer objective.
They're instructed.
One time, my lecturer who used to teach me contract law told us something simple that has been driving me up to today. That if you happen to go and rent a residence in a slum, the first 2 weeks, you will feel the stench, how the place actually smells. But after 2 months, it will disappear. You think the place will have stopped stinking? No, you will have become part of it. Now that is what has happened to Ugandans and the majority of us, that we cannot we can no longer separate right from wrong. It is no longer possible. You must be extremely sensitive to know that what is being done is wrong, but this one is correct. Now this is the issue, that the agencies you are talking about, you are referring to, have been compromised. They can no longer operate objectively and fairly. So the last resort that we can rely on as a country are the citizens. So the citizens must be reawakened to understand their constitutional obligation towards the state. Because citizens should know that a government is only a hired mercenary to run your affairs for a time being. They don't own anything.
You entrust them.
You hire them. That is why it is called a social contract. You hire them, but you can get rid of them as citizens. So this business of thinking that it is the government that owns the state. No. It is the citizens. So citizens should understand their constitutional obligations.
Okay, in just a minute or two, comment on this evidence, the purported evidence, especially the leaked audios that have been circulating around on social media implicating Dr. Kizza Besigye. They've not yet been arraigned in court. We don't know if they are really something that can be used in court. But what do you think about this evidence? It sounds too incriminating. Just a minute or two.
From the way our government operates, anything can happen. And if they had a genuine case, they would not even have leaked those things. Because that's, I mean,
that is subsidious, yes.
It is trying to create a public opinion.
Oh.
You actually have no case, but you want to manipulate a public opinion that, look, this man is actually a wrong character. So that even if you are unable to proceed with the case, the public opinion will affect his reputation.
Okay.
So, anybody that has been following Besigye for the last 3 decades will understand that indeed, if Besigye had wanted a rebellion, it would have been between 2000 and 2006 or 2007 thereabout. Because that was the time when he was a very popular man, extremely popular. 2, Besigye did not have to go to Nairobi to look for arms. Besigye was in a procurement of NRA. So he could have still stayed in Uganda and even procured the missiles. They could have found him here.
Because he has one time
So
done that.
the cases that the government is trying to put across, they are not convincing.
Yes, sir.
It is a political situation, but a crafty political gimmick. I think somebody is trying to make money out of it, but it is a deal gone bad. So it has backfired.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're still watching the Hotline Show. It's now time we take a break. When I come back, I'll be starting with Mr. Joseph Ochieno on that issue of Dr. Besigye, and we'll also be looking at the new Democratic Alliance. What does this mean to the politics of Uganda today, especially as we head for the 2026 general elections? My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga, and this is Digitalk TV. Let's take a break now.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.